monster. No, you are wrong. I am a god.
I'm Rex Paradox, the greatest man who ever lived. Your future shadow overlord, aspiring supervillain, part-time otaku, cinnamon toast crunch lover. And today on the program, I'm going to explain the character of Xehanort, the Kingdom Hearts villain, or antagonist if you will, Xehanort, and how his character and philosophy are part of a much larger debate, and how he's misunderstood as a character. So, here we go. To start, Xehanort's adventure is one that begins on Destiny Islands. A boy born on these shores one day begins to believe that his home is just too small. So one day he sets out in search of something more. He eventually finds himself in a new land, greeted by new people. From here on, he is taught how to wield the Keyblade and gains a new family, taught their values, given a new home. But Xehanort, he questions these values. He questions these things he's taught by his new family, as his character's already shown. This boy, who sought out to escape what he once thought was a prison, his former home, is introduced to a new prison. A prison of thought, that this one ideology, that light is good and almighty, that it is the only way. And Xehanort, always the freethinker, challenges this idea. Perhaps his new family's wrong. Perhaps they fear something because they were told to by a book. Maybe these texts that he's been reading, that they've taught him, are wrong. I mean, who wrote them? Perhaps the people who wrote them are biased. And by reading these texts, Xehanort learned of the Keyblade War. He learned of the origins of the world, that the world was born in darkness. And out of that darkness, light was born. And at some point, this war, this Keyblade War began, which was a fight over the light. And it created an imbalanced world in reality, where darkness had spread, taken over. Because those who championed the power of light fought a senseless battle for no reason. So Xehanort decided to embrace the world's true power, the world's true nature, the power of darkness, rejecting his family's teachings, and sought out his own solution to rebalance the worlds. As his journey continued, he wronged many people. One such being Vin, his newly acquired student, who he believed he could use as a catalyst to achieve his goals. By splitting Vin's heart into two, a pure light and a pure darkness, Xehanort had damaged Vin, and Xehanort was remorseful because of this. So much so that he returned to the islands which he had once considered a prison. Xehanort returned to the Destiny Islands so Vin could meet his end in peace and in tranquility. Unseen circumstances arose, and Vin defied his fate, leaving Xehanort to return to his adopted family, his brother Ericus, and leave his damaged student in the hands of his adopted brother, showing that Xehanort is not an evil man without compassion, but he is willing to go to extremes to achieve his goals. Now, I'm not going to go over every single detail of the Kingdom Hearts story because this video would be way too long, but let's just fast forward to Kingdom Hearts 3, as it's the second game where Xehanort gets the most screen time. Or, I'm not even going to say he gets the most screen time, like he's just the most character there. As he is now, like young Xehanort does not count here. I already went over his story, he does not count. Kingdom Hearts 3's Story of Xehanort is the end of the line for Xehanort. It's one of loneliness. You see, for years Xehanort had planned this battle, ultimately happening between 13 darknesses and 7 lights. This battle in Kingdom Hearts 3, the focal point of Kingdom Hearts 3, honestly. And just as like a side note, 7 is considered a lucky number and 13 is considered a number of misfortune. So just keep that in your mind. 7, 13. One's lucky, one's misfortune. And ultimately, Xehanort wins this battle. But then some crazy plot hole bullshit happens and the battle restarts, you know, light from the past. That was just like, I'm not sure what the fuck they were doing with that. But the thing you need to focus on here is not the battle itself, but the people involved, namely the 13 Darknesses. These 13 Darknesses are supposed to all be Xehanort, or at least some part of him divided among multiple vessels. This is because Xehanort believes that he's the only person he can depend on, the personification of his loneliness and solitude. These 13 Darknesses, that he's the only person that he can depend on. It's gotten him this far, and he believes, no, he knows that it will take him to his goal, which it ultimately does. Xehanort is the complete opposite of Sora, the character who says that his friends are his power. Xehanort's power comes from his belief in himself, that he can accomplish anything by himself, be it 1 or 13 of him. This actually shows early on in the battle where what I'll call Xehanort T, the Xehanort in control of Terra's body, single-handedly defeats Axel and Vin before ultimately meeting his fate via Donald in his final flash in the original timeline, where everyone ends up dying. This timeline, the original timeline, just for the sake of argument, was Xehanort's victory. However, the alternate timeline, the timeline Kingdom Hearts 3 ends with, Xehanort is not so fortunate, and one by one, his other 12 selves are defeated or betray him, reinforcing the idea that he's the only one he can depend on. This is my problem with the character, because at the end of Xehanort's adventure, where he is ultimately defeated by Sora, Donald, and Goofy, he breaks character and compromises his ideas and identity by giving in to his adopted brother's words instead of staying true to himself in the end. Rather than being struck down, or at least pass his ideas on to another, he gives into the philosophy he rejected all those years ago. It's like everything he did was pointless, because in the end, he stopped believing in himself due to something like peer pressure, instead of continuing on the path he believed would save the world and restore balance. Now, some people will try to say that Xehanort came to his senses, that he was wrong the whole time. But here's the argument. The Heartless still exists. There's still plenty of darkness in the world. Xehanort's story's over, but what happens now? What happens now? Now you have even more Keyblade wielders. Who's to say that another war for the light can't start again? Who's to make that argument that another war for the light could not start again? The original Keyblade War was started by Keyblade wielders, so what's to stop history from repeating? This is the issue I have with Kingdom Hearts 3 and the story of Xehanort, because Nomura does not provide an alternative. There's nothing to say that someone in the group can't change and that a new Keyblade War were to start. This is the problem. This is why Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't have a payoff. I love the game, but it does not have a payoff. Not a proper one. And that's the story of Xehanort and his character. And the larger debate is, do you give in to other people and peer pressure, or do you stick with your beliefs to the end? That's the real. Do you challenge other people's perceptions and norms of reality and what they think is good or proper or the right way to do things, or do you do things on your own? Sometimes you do pay the price. Sometimes you get other people to realize that you're right. That's the story of Xehanort. And look how it ended. With no payoff.
Ready, my friend? Yes.